It's exam week for me right now, so I'm gonna aim to get this on the shorter side, but today I wanted to talk about something I've been obsessing over for the last few years especially, and that's the topic of gaming backlogs. So let's get right into it. So I think that with the Demon Souls B-roll in the background, along with the topics I've been discussing on this channel beforehand, I think I've made it pretty apparent that I play, or at least aim to play, a lot of games. I'd say especially over the last couple of years, I've managed to get a pretty nice arsenal of incredible experiences that I've had in this medium. And while I am nowhere near finished with the hobby at all, I'd say that I've currently amassed a pretty nice palette of games that I've either played to completion or at least experienced. But naturally, there's a lot more games that I wish to experience but simply can't right now due to either spending time playing stuff right now or simply life just getting in the way. Because of this, along with getting a nice library of stuff that I've played and enjoyed, I've also amassed an even greater library of stuff that I haven't, with the stuff that I haven't not only far exceeding the stuff that I have, but to a point now where the stuff that I haven't played that I bought exceeds the stuff that I've actually beaten. Yeah, unfortunately, this isn't an issue that I've seen be alienated to me though, as the Steam sales are just so cheap nowadays. But along with this, a lot of retro game stores are having 7th gen games come in incredibly cheap nowadays, meaning that it is far easier to spend money on stuff that I genuinely won't have time for in at least a year. The easiest example that comes to mind for me recently is Final Fantasy X, which I recently picked up for about $12 Australian, and while I definitely do plan to play it at some point, I quite literally have at least 20 games that I've started and haven't finished yet, along with the fact that I don't even want FFX to be my entry point into the franchise, as I've already bought the original FF7 on Steam years ago, and I also want to play FF6 as well beforehand, as I have access to it through my SNES Classic. When you start getting into this territory, starting new games or even finishing old games that you've already started starts to become a chore. I mentioned in my last video that I beat GTA 4, which aside for having to pull out a massage gun for to beat the game on my Series X, was a game I really enjoyed. But what I didn't mention was that this was actually the second time that I had decided to start up playing GTA 4, as I previously had a save right after about the first big twist in the game on my PC that I got up to about 5 years ago now and put off for so long that I found it easier to pick up the original 360 version of the game and start from scratch there, as the quick resume suspend feature made hopping on and off of the game far easier, as I didn't have to spend literally 3 to 5 minutes from starting up my PC to launch the game every single time that I wanted to play it. I also find it way easier for me to put on hold or just straight up drop games that I start on my PC because of this fact. I don't have a fancy SSD and have all of my games on a ginormous 4 terabyte hard drive, and adding onto the fact that even booting up my PC from this alone takes about 2 whole minutes, not even factoring in how long it takes to launch Steam and everything else I use on my computer, I also have to launch into the game, wait for it to load, and finally get back into it from where I left off. I often prefer console gaming a lot because of this, as it literally cuts down this process from 5 minutes to about 5 seconds. But unfortunately for me, GTA 4 was just about the last thing I had easily available to me that I cared to play on my Xbox Series X. So I really have too many options right now to tackle many games differently without avoiding this buffer. One option I have been considering more and more has actually been to pick up a Steam Deck, but due to recent events, this option has suddenly become a lot less appealing for now. And especially since I have a lot more time to sit down and play stuff, I can probably just suck up and chip away at a lot of the games that I've been playing on Steam. One thing that's also been a bit of a double-edged sword for me with this added hindrance on getting into games for my PC has also been that starting new games is very, very easy to do. While it doesn't really happen too much with console games, as against something like GTA 4, where I could just get back into the game after about 5 seconds, it's often easier for me to stick with a game through a section I might not particularly enjoy too much, rather than just starting something completely new. With Steam, as I have literally hundreds of games at this point that I've bought for stupidly cheap prices that are just sitting at 0 hours that I know I'd be interested in trying out at some point, it becomes very, very difficult for me to pick the thing that I've been sticking for with a good amount of time in it. I actually sat down during the rest periods of some of my gym sessions last week and wrote this out, but including stupid challenges that I want to beat in games I've already beaten and DLCs to games that I've already beaten as well. I have about give or take 9 things that I separately want to play across all of my consoles, most of which I can tackle in probably about 1 or 2 sittings, so it's honestly more like 4 or 5 realistically. Whereas on my PC, I have about 16. And some of these standouts for me are Half-Life Alyx, which I started literally 2 years ago today as I'm recording this, but hated how useless the gravity hands are with combat so much, along with how tanky enemies are on hard that I haven't touched the game in about a year and a half. Halo CE, which I've actually started chipping away at after I beat GTA 4, but I've been playing on and off for about 5 years, and before a week ago, got up to a little bit about the halfway point through level 5 of 10. Fallout 4 is another one which I first started getting into when I was a wee little lazy at the age of 13. And I got up to the railroad quest line before getting bored at how annoyingly scarce a lot of the resources were, alongside a lot of the tanky enemies that were starting to appear at this point of the game. Another one is Metaphor Refantasia, which I actually pre-ordered and only got up to about the halfway point of the game about a year and a few months ago now. And also Sonic Mania, where I got up to the 4th or 5th level, I believe twice, and I dropped the game at both times at that point. Now, while I have said drop a lot of times, the above games that I mentioned, plus many more that I've also started and haven't mentioned here, I genuinely do want to, at the very least, roll credits on. As I mentioned before, I've started to make an effort in tackling my backlog and getting some of these out of my mind. You see, part of the reason why I actually started and dropped a lot of these games was in particular due to my mental state, which at about the second half of 2024 especially has started to go pretty downhill again, and went down further when academically I didn't really have the strongest 2025, and I generally just lost touch with a lot of things that I enjoyed in replacement for less fulfilling things like social media addiction. But due to some events that kind of changed my perspective on a lot of things and my mood at the tail end at about 2025, I slowly started putting in stronger structure, and I started to aim to procrastinate less with not just my studies, but also playing games that I genuinely care about and falling back in love with this part of the medium. I often find that filling in time that would otherwise be spent scrolling with more mindful stuff, not just gaming, but shit like reading and working out, my mental state improves and in turn creates a positive feedback loop that just helps me enjoy stuff I'm currently doing more, along with making newer stuff that I might try out even more fun. I've also found that tackling games that have been on my mind for a while and in my backlog, again for a while, head first and just kind of get them out of the way has also done wonders in helping me enjoy games a lot more and feel a lot less guilty about starting new games as well. I also had to kind of sit back and really think to myself at times if I really wanted to start up something new or if I was just procrastinating finishing up another game or task. And after sitting with myself during these time periods and really crunching the numbers and what I had started and what I hadn't, I realized that I'd honestly be a lot happier already finishing up the stuff that I had started rather than just adding more stuff to the pile. I guess my main point with this video that I'm trying to say is that while backlogs can be a pain in the ass, and I've definitely had my fair share of pain going through them, it really does feel good to finish off something that you started years ago, and finally seeing the end of something that a younger version of yourself couldn't see. And especially more fun when you open up more experiences in a similar genre or franchise after beating that particular game. A good example for me right now is Megami Tensei, which I originally got into after playing both the vanilla and royal versions of Persona 5 back in about 2019 to 2020. However, I wouldn't beat another Megaten game until Persona 4 Golden, which I originally bought back in 2021, but I didn't finish until about 2023 and about the end of that. And once I got this out of sight and out of mind, I went on a crazy spree in 2024 playing both Fez and Reload versions of Persona 3 and along with The Answer, its DLC. And alongside this, I also started exploring other entries in the franchises, like the original version of Persona 1 on the PS1, and some mainline games as well, like Nocturne, SMT4, and also what quickly became one of my favorite games of all time, Strange Journey. I would never have played any of these games or even been compelled to if I didn't originally sit down and beat Persona 4 Golden about 2 to 3 years ago, and I'm very thankful that I eventually did. I will say that after the Persona 3 remake changed some things that left me feeling a lot like a mixed bag overall, I am a little bit skeptical going into the Persona 4 remake, but I'm still relatively excited for it and definitely will be reactivating my Game Pass subscription to quickly breeze through it when it drops next year. And another good example that I mentioned before was Halo, as once I play through and finish up Combat Evolved, I'm very, very excited to see the hype of games like 2, 3, ODST, and Reach, which I've played sparingly over the years and enjoyed a lot out of, especially the multiplayer of Reach. Beating Halo might also compel me to start up and finish other shooters that I'm relatively interested in, such as Doom Eternal, which is another game that's been sitting in my backlog for quite a few years now, along with starting up and finishing the rest of the Bioshock franchise, as while I did play 1, I wasn't really compelled to immediately jump into 2, its DLC, and Infinite, and I can definitely see myself getting back into a bit of an FPS craze after I go through the Halo franchise. And that's about where I want to wrap up for today. I'm actually writing this and reading it a few decent hours before the video is going to be released. And I don't usually do this, but I'm having a little bit of a cheat day today as I'm really stressing about an exam that I fumbled earlier today. But I'm hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. And I'm honestly doing my best to not have potentially repeating this really annoying subject that I could have failed for not meeting the hurdle for the exam in the future get the better of me. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Leave a like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment about any games that you have on your backlog or stuff that you've recently cleared off. Thanks and take care.